Hey, good morning, everybody. Today I am joined with my friend Albert Ramos, who is a leader who spent years helping businesses untangle complexity, improve how they operate, and scale with clarity. And one thing I really like about him is he brings such a unique blend of strategies and systems and all these real world experiences that make him the go to voice when it comes to small businesses, also. So I'm so excited to have you here and kind of just chat about your journey and small businesses and everything you're doing with your own business.
I appreciate that. Good morning to you and to everybody. Chrissy, it was such a pleasure to have you on my show. And how lucky am I to now come onto
I know,
yours? I've
it's
been
so
seeing you
fun.
every week. I'm on your newsletter. Everyone needs to be following what you're putting out there. It is so practical, which I enjoy, not theoretical. It's here's what you need to go do. Here's what I'm seeing. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So, one thing I always like to ask everybody, what is the story that got you to where you are today? The one that's not going to be on the resume or on your LinkedIn profile, but what is that step of, hey, I know I was meant for more. I wasn't meant for maybe the 9 to 5 world, essentially, but to build something for others.
Yeah, so I come from a line of entrepreneurs, actually. My mom and that side of the family is from Peru. And so a lot of real estate, a lot of goods, consumer goods, and things like that. And then my dad also comes from a line of entrepreneurs, himself included, in the construction space. And so I have that in the blood. It's funny though, growing up, he would always tell me, you don't want to be an entrepreneur. You don't want to go through the ups and downs, the economy and the client, this and that, acquisition to attrition. He's like, get a good education and climb up the corporate ladder. And so I did that, and it was a lot of fun. I felt like, or I feel like it's been a successful ride, and I continue to spend time there. But along the way, I realized that I was having the itch. Well, I'll tell you, number one, I wanted to protect my taxes, and we all know that
Yes.
owning a small business supports that as you're creating value in the economy and our GDP and all of that, and jobs. But two, I just knew that I had an opportunity to go do more, make a better impact. And so that's really the story of what got me there. And I've just been learning along the way.
Yeah. I think it's funny because I come from an entrepreneurial family as well, and they kind of push like, go get a good education, find a good job, stay there for, your whole life. Essentially, they were big on this is where you work for the next 40 years.
Right.
And it's a lot different for our generation
So much different.
today. But I think it's funny how they had a lot of freedom in what they did, but yet they didn't necessarily want to invite me to go down the same road they went
Hmm.
down. So I don't know if your family was kind of the same route as, like you said, your dad's like, hey, I don't know if you want to live, the ups and downs of life.
Right.
Maybe it's, I want something better for you.
And I think that's what it is. And he and my mom have been very vocal about that. So I really appreciate them about them. I went to a small little private school called Occidental College,
Yeah.
where that I was also impactful on and how I'm raising my kiddos. I got three of them to critically think, right? I appreciated the small classrooms because I had an opportunity to spend time with my professors and go grab a beer after class, to critically think, to have a conversation, to challenge ideas regardless if, as we typically do, the authority in the room, the professor, was actually letting us know, hey, challenge my thoughts. And I appreciate that. And I've taken that not only into the corporate arena, but also into the entrepreneur world. And so it's been a lot of fun, but I could relate with what you're saying in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah. And I think to the critical thinking, it's really fun once you learn how to do it.
Yeah,
You know, you get to, I feel like for myself, a different lens is put on and you see things so differently that you
right.
didn't before. And it's fun to have engaging conversations and learn why somebody might go down one route or, just their understanding about something. I think it's really fun to do.
Yeah, I'm a big reader, and so I like to read not only things that I enjoy or maybe even reinforce my thought
Yeah.
process, but also other things that I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Let's see how this goes. This is going to be a level of discomfort. So, and that also means podcasts, right? I
Mhm.
love jumping on. I actually use social media to continue to learn, and I'm not afraid to actually challenge publicly
Yeah.
things that I think, I'd like to give them a different perspective. And I'm always asking for the same. I want people to
Mhm.
challenge, my financial perspectives, when I'm posting it out there, I love those comments the best because I get to learn something or we get to teach each other something.
Yeah,
I think we need more of that. And we
I
know
do
the
too.
buzz across the country around just some polarization. I think we need more forum, more communication with each other and challenging differing views and still getting along and having a good time.
And that's the only way you grow.
Right.
I had a conversation earlier this morning. Do you remember the book, The Peter Principle?
I
Did you
do.
ever
Yeah.
read it? And it just
Mhm.
talking about how you never want to get to the point where you tap out and you can't grow
Right.
anymore within an organization. And how do you always keep learning? And so I think that's really fun to be able to, like you said, challenge everything that I say. Let's have a conversation about it and let's both learn.
Remember having a mentor, and I've always appreciated the ones that were the hardest. He's still around, by the way. I still chat with him, but he told me one thing. This was probably 10 years ago, to stay relevant. And
Mm.
I think that's more important than ever before in this very noisy environment that we have on social and the introduction of AI and things just firing at us like a machine gun, just all these different
Oh,
inputs.
yeah.
And so as an entrepreneur, I think that's also important to think about is, are you staying relevant? Are you doing the same things you've done for the last 10, 20 years? And maybe those things are great and they're working, but in order for you to push through and to grow yourself as well as your team and business, I think you have to answer that question and give it a lot of reflection.
Yeah. And I think that's especially relevant to the industry that we're both in. The finance industry has always operated the same way for
Right.
decades. And now we're getting a taste of technology in here. And how are we going to stay relevant with all this new technology that's there and not going to tap out and be replaced essentially by technology, but then also leaders that are taking their, financial firm or accounting firm or whatnot to a different level.
I agree. And I think it's okay to do two things at once. And that means being a first mover or experimenting, trying, piloting, beta testing with the technology that is now being introduced at our fingertips. But I also think making sure that you have discernment, that you have human in the loop, that you have governance, that you have some level of caution. And for me, I call it paranoia.
Mhm.
I think that's okay too. You
I
can do
think that's
two things at
okay.
once. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's moving so quickly too, and you don't wanna, like I always tell people, don't hop on too quick if you haven't done your due
Right.
diligence yet, because it could impact you for the worse.
Well, I've read your stuff, right? I love your newsletter, but you talk about that a lot and we saw that case study, I think it was MIT, 95% of these AI projects are failing. And it's exactly that. It's don't jump in to implement. There's so many more steps that you need to, even on the financial side, when you're modernizing your tech stack, you can't rush to these things. It is, yes, the low hanging fruit, but one step at a time. And that includes bringing your people along too, which is
Mhm.
probably the biggest variable of it all.
Oh, yeah, because you gotta make sure your team is on board and can support it. It can't just come from the highest level to say, "Hey, this is where we're going, and
Right.
good luck, grab your oar, get in the boat, and let's figure out how
We're
to get
doing
there."
it. We're going. Love it.
We're going all in. So I think one thing that's really interesting too is, people talk about entrepreneurship like it's this glamorous lifestyle, and there's, real life that happens behind the closed doors that I don't think people always understand what that is. The hard work that, we each put into our business, because it is like having your own child. It's a company, and you live and breathe it, and you nurture it. You want it to be all that you can be with it. So when you started your business, what were some of the things that were those aha moments that, oh, wait a second, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be? Or these are things that, oh, this is not as hard as people told me to be. I can adapt pretty easily to this. And, whether that's building a team or finding
Sure.
your product, all of those.
Yeah, I think going into it, I knew a couple of things that I believe and gotten feedback that I'm good at. I think one being the dreamer, right? Moving fast. That is always I've always been pretty good at having some good ideas, obviously some not so great ideas, but some ideas that I'll take action on. So I knew once I thought about Stratego, I knew something, I was going to make something out of it, right? I was going to make something out of being, and this is before the fractional space was like the mainstream word. It was more of an advisory
Yeah.
consultant, right? So I think there's just a change of words there. So I knew that was good. I knew that, and surprisingly or not, growing up, I was very introverted, and I worked a lot on that, whether it was through sports, through school, right? Listening to a lot of public speakers to try to find my voice and the communication cadence and all that. But I knew at that point when I was thinking about starting or launching Stratego, communication was a strength, building a team was a strength, and being that visionary was a strength, right? The ability to influence and inspire others to rally around your vision, including those that you want to purchase your products, services, etc.
Yeah.
Where I coach a lot of people and I share, because people, behind the closed doors, like, what is the hardest thing? Give me the messiness. And it's truly that sales grind. It's the outreach, it's the prospecting and all of that, whatever platform you're using, whether it's email, LinkedIn, social media, what have you, phone call.
Yeah.
And the marketing side, I knew that while I understood, or at least I could picture the marketing funnel perfectly, right? As you learn through your MBA courses.
Oh, yeah.
I said, yeah, that makes total sense. But actually making it all connect to tell a brand story, I think over the years, I'm trying to get, speaking of growing and improving, I'm still trying to get that perfected. And I don't know if it's ever perfect. I think you're just iterating over time.
Yeah.
We recently went through a rebranding of the podcast, the Stratego logo, and all of the different ways that lead from top of funnel down to new client. And so it's a lot of work.
It is.
Just letting my wife know, I'm like, I could see why people tap out, because this requires time. It requires a lot of thought. It requires trying, failing, iterating, and trying again. And I get it. I think the easiest thing to do is just say, yeah, this is not for me. Let me go and just do my corporate 9 to 5.
Yeah. And I think too, some of it, I've always, something that I got hung up on early in the entrepreneurial journey was those failure points. I took them as failure, not as growth points.
Right.
So it was, I could do a funnel and it wouldn't work. I'm like, oh my gosh, I failed at this. And I had luckily some good mentors at the time that said, no, that's really good. You just learned this doesn't work. So let's go try another one, and don't look at it as failure in that. But I agree with you. The sales side, there's so much that goes into it that I don't think people understand, or they take for granted, ones that are built really, really well. And when you want to go put it in your own business, you think, oh, well, this is just a few clicks when I've experienced it this way, maybe an hour to set this up. We're good.
Exactly. And then here they come, and they're just going to show up. It's going to be amazing.
You're like, I wish, that'd be fantastic, but it's time. When your business, because a big thing with you two is like processes and systems and all of that, how have you grown from when you first started to making those kind of like the cornerstone and foundation of your organization?
Yeah, you see that a lot on LinkedIn, but you don't really realize I need to carve out time, a couple months, couple weekends to really think about, reverse engineer the customer experience, the prospect or lead experience, your team member experience. And so nowadays, I mean, everything is documented, and all that all feeds into, not to get too much into it unless we want to, but GPTs, right? I have a lot of processes that I do now that are documented on Gamma. So I use Gamma. I don't use PowerPoint. I love Gamma because
Gamma's a lot of fun.
So much fun. And I love the color palettes and all of that. So I have that so that when I have a new team member come on, it's an easy teaching moment, right? Their onboarding process and training and all of that. So I use a lot of Gamma. I love the Google suite. So there's a lot of things you can do within there. I enjoy the Microsoft suite as well. I just happen to use Google unless, a client is using Microsoft. I can easily, just from experience, having used it before, transition into there if that's what they prefer. But a lot of processes, a lot of systems on what to go do for the sales process, what to go do for the marketing process. Once there's a client on board, what does that onboarding experience look like? And what information are we gathering from the accounting all of it. So there is a process for everything, because what ends up happening is if you don't have that, you have this momentum, great, but what ends up going on is the business starts running you and you're not running the business.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that when you're growing and as a small business, it's so easy that it's like this fight between you and the business of like, I'm gonna own it, the business owns me, and it's back and forth. It's
Exactly.
this crazy struggle until you get to a point where you do have some really good processes. You have a team that supports it. And I would say, like, as you've been growing your team, what are some of those things that you have to look for so that they're on board with processes and helping you refine them as they go?
Yeah, nowadays, actually, I was just having a conversation with a group out with the CFO Alliance. There's about a dozen CFOs in a room, and they're asking the same thing. What is the difference in talent nowadays on the finance side? And I let them know it's, yes, the technical is so important, right? And so I translate this to marketing operations. Yes, the technical experience is great, like the subject matter expert, but the ability to communicate, to think on your feet, right? Take decisive action. And then in any small business, like your adaptability, the ability to put on another hat is so key. A lot of people don't like that, right? They feel uncomfortable getting out of their what
Yeah.
they feel really good at. And so I look for examples like that where potential team members that would come on board have worn multiple hats or have challenged themselves, right? And you can find that out in a lot of different ways, whether it be their work experience or just life experience in general, but the ability to adapt. Nowadays, things are moving so fast, like you have to be able to know when and how to pivot. And
Yeah.
so that's a big thing that I look for, whether it be on the financial side or any aspect of the business.
And I think it's hard on the accounting side because people have been taught in that industry. And I think engineers too, you
Right.
very much, here's the lane that you stay in, and you don't really come out of that too much. But what
Sure.
I've seen, and even with like the introduction of AI, is we are technical experts at the same time in a lot of ways. And our minds think that way too. And so it makes it, at least for me, it's been really easy to adopt technology and bring that extra level of curiosity of, ooh, how would this benefit? And is there
Right.
something better? Where's the gap in this? And it's been really fun. And I like to see people when they have those moments too of, oh, I see why I shouldn't use this Excel spreadsheet anymore. I should use the technology that we're using to help me, save a lot of steps.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's also knowing the audience, right? And meeting.
Mhm.
You talk a lot about this around just the empathy part of all of this, being a leader, an entrepreneur, right? I think it is important, even if people like us are already in this and it's exciting and we see the benefits and the ROI. There still are a lot of people, and I'm sure people watching that aren't there. They're still trying to figure it out, and that's okay. Change management, as we know, this is how it works. You have
Yeah.
those that are the frontier, then you have kind of the other part of the group, maybe the 70%, and then you have that 30% that's just like, let me just watch them
Yeah.
fail.
I
Let
need
me
to
just
make
watch this not work out.
sure.
It's okay. That's normal and
It
that's
is.
totally fine. So I think just knowing your audience and knowing what stage are they at and how do I educate them on how to use these tools. But
Mhm.
you're right. I do think we're and I like to say we're leaning more towards being these cyborg leaders.
Yeah.
I think that's just the reality of it all. For those that are, maybe challenging this moment, this revolution of technology, right? This big change. I'd highly recommend that they start, because I do think enterprise will start first. We'll get it into more small business, but this will just be our reality. And there's a lot of pain points with our tension points around just
Oh, yeah.
privacy, surveillance, all of that, which, that's a whole nother story. But I think using these tools and being able to move quickly is going to be the expectation from the marketplace here very, very soon. I think the adoption wave has only, the clock's ticking for that one.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree. And it's, people don't want to miss it. I think
Right.
that's the big thing. I always think about, companies that they were going to go public. I hear so many people of, well, I should have bought Google the day that they IPO'd, I'd be a millionaire,
Me too.
and you think about things, it's the same way with your business. You got to get in that early adoption phase of things
Yeah,
because if you don't, you will get left behind or you will experience a lot more pain than you should.
sure. There's a Jim Collins, Good
Hmm.
to Great and Built to Last. I go back to those, right? Or The First 90 Days
Yep.
is another good one. those books, like they're so timely, even today, right? You think about the flywheel, you think about the level 5 leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend people go back to that, and you can read about the businesses that were doing so well. And this could be our businesses that are doing so well today, yet weren't thinking about or positioning themselves or setting themselves up for future success because potentially a little stubborn on some of the new
Yeah.
innovations out there.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing is, as you've been growing your team, like everybody, we all have a combination of offshore and US based. What has that looked like from a
Yeah.
technology perspective, as well as when you're, handling different cultures, different time zones, and
Mm.
growing that in your organization? What has your experience been like?
Yeah, so we do that at Stratego and Valisights. So let me put it this way, and I like to actually. I was just in a room with CHROs and CFOs. I gave them this question: what is your digital species headcount in 2026? In the room, you should have seen the faces. That was my favorite part. The eyes and the faces, like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
But it went quiet, and I really do think that has to be. It's budgeting season right now for many. It has to be a topic of conversation. When I say digital species, I'm talking about GPTs and agents, right? What does that look like? We can treat it or them
Mhm.
as headcount, in addition to your human headcount, those that are responsible for managing these systems or those that will continue to do the tasks that they're used to
Mhm.
doing. And that means domestic and international. So we do have team members in Honduras and Venezuela, in Nepal and India, whether they be from the accounting side or executive assistant or developers. And so, yeah, there is a challenge with time zones. So I think communication channels, whether that be WhatsApp or
Yeah.
Slack or what have you, Google Chat. I actually really enjoy Google Chat because it's
Mhm.
all in one house. So you just use these platforms to communicate with each other, and then have an understanding that, and a lot of what I do in those situations are off hours to many, right? It's
Yeah.
1 hour for me, but early mornings or late nights. And so it's just the reality of having access to a global economy and global resources. But
Mhm.
I do think, right, you got to be the unit economics, right? So this is where I would and where I do assess, okay, what do the unit economics look like as I introduce international labor in many
Yep.
cases at a cheap, not cheaper is not the right word, but at a maybe more affordable rate at this
Yeah.
point of my business, then the domestic help and what that looks like from a payroll and resources.
Mm.
But less the financials, more so how does that impact the experience, the member customer experience? And so you have to think about that, because in a lot of times I feel like people just think about the costs, right? The
Mhm.
cost inputs, but they don't realize your question about, hours of operation or time zones, and even just competencies or culture, right?
Yeah.
Communication, language, like all of those are very, very important when you're thinking about the customer journey and the customer experience. And so you can't leave that one out.
Mhm. Yeah, I would totally agree with you on that. The culture thing is big, because you have a culture in your organization that you're trying to build, and then you have a variety of cultures that you're bringing in from an international standpoint. And how do you get, everybody, on board with where you're going, but then also be able to meet them where they are. If
Right.
we all have different communication ways that, we like to be spoken to, tonalities, or, whether that's a message or it's a phone call, all of those things that I've seen it's kind of fun to figure out of, how can I make this person so successful, and
Right.
what do they need, but not making it so customized, but enough where they feel seen.
And let me add this too. I think as we're talking about technology, I'm a big fan of transcribers, because
Yeah.
I think everything that we're doing nowadays is a data point. Maybe it always has been. We just have the technology now to gather that. And what's beautiful about transcribers is whether or not you're there at the meeting, you're still getting those notes, right? You're still getting those action items. So we can still move quickly versus this back and forth. Hey, do you have the notes? Hey, what do you
Yeah.
want to talk about? Or maybe I just missed it as I was trying to handwrite. And I'm not saying that we should lose that art of handwriting. I always get
Right.
I always get people that tell me, like, I am not going to stop writing. I'm like, that's great. and people are kinetic learners, so I get it, or kinesthetic learners, right? So I think I love transcribers. I love it for not only team meetings, but also for content production, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think about our conversation here. I steal so many gems from you, right? I steal them, I borrow through a transcriber, and I'm able to come up with different thoughts and different copy for,
Mm-hmm.
different points of conversation and posts.
Yeah. Well, and then it just helps too, because sometimes you're in the middle of handwriting something
Right,
down while somebody's saying, you're like, oh gosh. And not every situation is, hey, hold on a second, can you repeat yourself?
right,
So it's nice to have that transcribe in the background and like
right.
you said, all the data points that you can pick up from it.
Well, you think about just talent, right?
Yeah.
So I've had recently a couple different examples where the organization loses some of their biggest veterans, or the veterans are promoted.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of ways, when you have 20, 25 years of experience, a lot of what you do is in here. It hasn't necessarily been documented. But as you use these transcribers, whether they be on calls, during meetings, your ability to protect from a dip because your
Mm-hmm.
veterans are no longer in that place. This in these examples was marketing and sales.
Yeah.
You now have this almost this organization knowledge, right? And we call it the knowledge base, right? The behind the scenes of these GPTs or agents, the knowledge base just gets updated. And so we're essentially taking wiring everyone's brains into this, right? Our language, right? And even eventually our actions will feed the
Yeah.
knowledge base so that the organization has this value. I think there's gonna be a lot there in the future. Now we just have to worry about data protection, privacy,
Yep,
things like
all
that.
those things. Yeah, because you
Mhm.
read all the horror stories on the news. Oh, this got, broken into. You're like, oh my
Right.
God,
I
okay,
know.
this is fantastic.
And that's
But I
never
think
gonna end.
it's never gonna end.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And it's just what are ways that you can help protect yourself along the
Right.
lines with it. Yeah. And I think too, even the change when we had like when search engines first came out and how we had to learn to search for things, it was a very different language.
Right.
And even today with the AI agents, I read an article the other day. It said so many people use, ChatGPT or whatever agent or AI tool they're using, and they speak to it like they would a Google search. And
Mm.
that's not going to give you the output that you're really looking for.
Yeah, and I like that you're talking about speaking to. I highly recommend for those that are already using like a chat or a copilot or what have you, you start talking to it, not typing. I think voice, I had Kendra Matthias from Amazon on the show, and she obviously has a lot knows a lot of behind the
Yeah.
scenes with Alexa and all of that. And voice is going to be a big thing. So I think everyone take a sip of water and just get the vocal cords ready, because I think that's where it's going to go. Our experiences are going to be, you think about the way AI works, it likes a lot of context, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
typically we speak faster than we type,
Hmm.
and we typically get more of what we're thinking in many cases, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
generalizing it a little bit, but we give more context when speaking. And so AI likes that and can come up with different outputs for you as you iterate through that. So I definitely think that's important. So that's why I like a lot of these transcribers. That's why I like to speak to, and I even bring chat around with its vision. I always say
Yeah.
it's like a little Terminator without a weapon, which we don't want.
No.
It's like a little smart Terminator for you. Your
Yeah.
co-pilot for everything that you're doing.
I know what was it, last year or the year before, I think when AI was really starting to get traction, how many people are like, oh my gosh, it's going to be living Terminator and laser guns and all these things. And you're like, well, if you built it that way, sure. But with where we're going, it's just really cool with how it can be used, and especially in the financial world. And I think that speaks to a lot of your software with
Mhm.
Valisights,
Yeah.
of how your tool really takes the information out of QuickBooks, wherever the data is stored, to be able to help tell the story of how financials are being put together. So if
Right.
you could share a little bit how you came up with that solution and how
Sure.
you've seen it kind of grow over the years to help, because there's so many more of us. Like you said, the fractional CFO has really always been there. It's just the name got changed and it's talked about a lot more now,
Right.
because I don't know about you. I think there's a lot more small businesses out there that see
Yeah.
the need to have the CFO but can't afford a CFO. So the
Sure.
fractional comes in, and it's really cool. They don't just need the bookkeeper and their CPA. They can actually have a team. So yeah, curious to know just if you want to
Yeah.
explain that
Well, I'll kick it
story.
off with Stratego. And so the way I promote Stratego on LinkedIn is being in the niche as a fractional CFO, being in the niche of wellness, fitness, longevity, or the halo industry, as we call it within our groups. But I also do construction, manufacturing, retail, and hospitality. And typically, to your point, is, well, we don't necessarily have the most robust finance back office, right? We're about $1 million to 30 million in top line revenue, right? So we don't really have all those resources. Maybe we have a bookkeeper at the most, a controller, right? Or someone in FP&A, some type of analyst. But we don't have the means, we don't want or have the cash flow to have a $250,000 salary. So that's where the term fractional, right? You're getting the same deliverables, if not better, because it's so focused and lasered. I always call it inch wide, mile deep, right? And not the rest of the things that sometimes CFOs have to go chase, right? The nuances and the distractions. And then you're getting it at a fraction of the cost, right? So you can go on my website at strategointel.com, and I'm very transparent about it. I've never been a fan of like, click the demo. I'm like, oh, just tell me, just tell me. I don't want to do this whole call thing, right? Just let me know. And I get why people do that, right?
I do too.
There's different, tiers and levels and customization, but I'm fairly transparent about it. So then I go into an organization, and let's just say it's an example here recently in a construction business where we have to modernize the tech stack. They've been doing well, great EBITDA, good valuation, was acquired, right? We found a lot of great things as we're doing the due diligence, but now they need to move quicker AR, better AP, right? How do we forecast? We don't have a 13-week cash flow, right? So I go in, and if it's the right thing, we layer in Valisights. So Valisights was actually a suite of tools that were AI powered on the FP&A front that was tested out on a company called Now CFO. Many probably recognize that name. It then spun off into what it is today. And we focus on cash flow forecasts, which many small businesses and probably a lot of people listening don't do yet because they don't know how to. It takes a lot of time, and who's going to update it? Who's going to build this thing? And I get it, right? But I think it also comes back to how we're educated. A lot of people are so married to the income statement, but don't realize the life and DNA of your whole company is the cash flow, your cash flow positioning.
Yeah.
And so having visibility on that, and I'd imagine I've been there where you're just like, are we going to meet payroll? Well, you need to have a cash visibility, not wait till the end of the month plus 10 days or 5 days to say, what did my P&L look like? That's so historic looking, right? You can't really do anything about it too much there. So what Valisights does is it scrapes all of your accounting data. And by the way, this is very secure, closed network. So I know there's a lot of those when it comes to AI that, can I trust this? So we're really big about that, right? From compliance to governance to security and anonymizing it. So we scrape all your data. We can go back 10 years if we wanted to, but let's just say we have a good sample size of the last 2 to 3 years. Right. We then layer it in, and it looks like your chart of accounts, right? And all the different rows of your inflows, let's call it AR, right? Or line of credit, any type of debt financing, and your outflows, all of your spend. And so I could pull it up today, and it looks like a human did it. It looks like I did it. I did not, right? So the AI did it. Obviously, we've coded it and programmed it to look like what it would look like in a normal spreadsheet, but we're doing it in minutes, right? It's scraping it, it's producing. And I say today that it gets you about 70 to 80% of the way there. I do not trust AI. It's just not there. And so we still have human in the loop, whether it's myself or those on my team that have finance backgrounds, right? Are also AI data scientists, so they can audit log it. And we scrub through it. And then in partnership with our clients, we iterate and make it better. We can connect it automatically to your QBO or ERP, to your CRM, right? If you want some sales forecasting in there as well. And so that's helped a lot of businesses be able to have that visibility. The next layer of it is it then gives you obviously your visuals of KPIs and all that, but recommendations. And that's where I think everything's going is people want to just know, what do I need to do right now? Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to analyze, just tell me what to go do. Smart system, right? Smart technology. And that's where we take it. We actually give you the recommendations based on all of that data, and it learns the behaviors of your customers, your vendors, your team members, your inflows and outflows. it will tell you, it will highlight your insights, which many dashboard companies do today. But the next layer is it will tell you what to go do. Here are 5 different things you need to go do right now, and here's why. And again, we're obviously scrubbing that. The other thing that we do, and you've probably seen this a lot, is a leader, business owner gets the P&L, gets the balance sheet, looks at it maybe for 10 to 20 minutes. Got it? We know directionally how things are going, file it away, and that is that. And there's really not a lot of decision making going on there because many people don't have, and it just is what they're great at other things, don't have the financial literacy to see different balance sheet ratios, different margin and yield, right, going on in their P&L to make decisions. Well, Valisights does that now. Again, I think that's where everything is going, is you'll have a CFO in your pocket.
Yeah. And then like you said too, it's having that dashboard. So many
Right.
don't. And you can look at QuickBooks, you can look at the dashboard they have. It doesn't tell you the complete story.
Right.
You need, the data has to come out and be I call it manipulated. It's not, but you're bringing it in.
Yeah, you got to sift through it. Yeah.
You got to sift through it. You got to put it to where it needs to go to be able to tell that full story.
Right.
And I think too, with small businesses, I've seen, depending on the entity structure, you get so many that are solopreneur or just a regular LLC.
Sure.
Well, when that happens, the balance sheet gets neglected because your CPA never asked for it.
Yes. And then when you're thinking about exit strategy, in comes your Q of E and your people like me, that I'm going to go through every line of your income statement, your balance sheet, and your cash flow, if you have it, a cash flow forecast. And a lot of people leave money on the table because, and I won't say it, I do it from a negative point of view. I just see opportunities, right, to come in, or those that do the due diligence to say, hey, they don't really have their ducks in a row, probably have a little bit of leverage when it comes to acquisition price. So you really got to think about that as you're thinking about your exit, is do you have the organized finance back office? And do you have access to these tools like Valisights to get you there to really tighten it up? By the way, I love going to a bank with not only the tools at Valisights, because not every client uses it. Like I said, I'm very picky when it's the right thing. It has to be the right thing for the business. But as far as, having your ducks in a row and having everything tied in a bow, I love going to banks because I typically get what I want. So that it's really important to have that experience when it comes to banks or capital raising.
Yeah, because that's usually the holdup of why you can't get the money you need, because the
get those calls
financials
all
are
the
a
time.
mess.
Albert, help them because we want to fund them. I'm like, got it.
Like, I'm on it. I'll take care of it. Let's go. I've seen that a lot. And especially with some companies recently, as they're trying to consolidate debt or find different ways to be creative in managing debt and all of that. And well, the balance sheet was neglected because the prior company that took care of them, it's usually a bookkeeper only. And they don't always have the knowledge or skill set to manage the balance sheet. I've seen that a lot. People understand the P&L, to your point. That's normally what people look at, but you can't see the full story if you don't use all three: cash flow, balance sheet, P&L.
And they all connect, right?
They
and
all
there's
connect.
You do this. I've seen some others on LinkedIn that show with the arrows, and they have these beautiful PDFs. I wish I was that creative to make them look nice. I'm not. So I follow people like Nicholas. He's international, but Stratego and some others. Christian Wadig. They do Christian Martinez. They do some great stuff to show you how everything connects. And actually, it's a 3-statement model. So I highly recommend, if anyone's going to do anything,
they should look at it.
Yeah, look at that stuff, build it, or have someone build a 3-statement model in addition to your cash flow forecast. You'll be golden.
You totally will. And I think too, so many people, they get their financials, 15 to 20 days after the month close. So every decision being made is in the past.
Right.
You need to be able to look forward on all of that.
Yeah, you might as well just scrap it. Don't look at it.
Yeah, don't even. You're done.
You're a month down the road, and the world's moving. It's going to get faster and faster. So if you're not getting real time, or you're closing that month end, and for those listening, if you're not within 5 days nowadays with the technology and integrations that you can connect to, it's just, there's room for opportunity for sure there.
There really is. What piece of advice would you give people if they were 2 things? One, I don't know what I want to do with my business yet. Maybe I want to sell, maybe I want to keep. And then secondly, different path of what does it look like when I want to start introducing AI into my organization?
Yeah, so I'll start with the first one. I think that's more of a personal question,
Yeah.
right? Just understanding what are your goals? What would you like to see out of the business? Is that, you got to think about it in a couple different ways, in your hands or in someone else's hands, and what does that look like? Who do
Mm-hmm.
you want to work with if you were to bring on partners or they were to keep you on, right? And there's private equity, there's VC, there's family office, there's connection to your bank. That's also an important
Yeah.
relationship. So I think just thinking about those things, like, what does this look like? Do you still enjoy it? That happens, right? Some people fall out of love with the thing that they were in love with or were passionate about. So I think that's more of a getting introspective, right? Going
Yeah.
deep there. As far as AI, again, going back to what we were saying earlier, I think people get so excited and they want to implement and introduce, and then things break. It's very similar to automation, right?
Yeah.
You can't automate out of bad data. You can't AI out of bad data. So I think the data side is important. That's number one. But then also creating a framework. And when this goes out, I'll share that because I do a lot of launch pads. A lot of people don't know that while I talk a lot about AI, I actually go into companies and do these 2-day intensive launch pads, whether that's for their leadership or maybe even their influences, as I would
Mm-hmm.
call it, within the team. And so I would start there, is build a framework around your governance, your committee. What does that roadmap look like? What pain point are we trying to identify? Saying you're AI first is the worst thing to do.
Yeah.
No one's AI first. AI is not even there to run your whole org. It's, where can I use AI? Where are the low-hanging fruits that have pain points, right? And either has some type of proof of concept somewhere that you picked up, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
out there in the public, or that I know if gone wrong, the risk to the organization is very, very minimal. That's where you go start. You can go big if there is a proof of concept there and you're going to get it right because you reverse engineered every step.
Mm-hmm.
Great. But I highly recommend at this stage, because AI I think it gets you 70% of the way there. You start small wins, and then stack that up. And again, understand, what are you solving for? Is it just because you think this is cool and it's going to be awesome for our sales team? That's not the right approach. And so just having a playbook, having a digital roadmap, having the key stakeholders, influencers all involved, also a committee, right? And just making sure that there's governance around approval process, who's managing it, what triggers it. There's a lot that goes
There's
into.
so much. I
Yeah,
know.
until you ever say the word, we are going to test it or implement this and roll it out. If you haven't done those things, good luck. It's not
Yeah,
going to go well. And we all know this from doing
we do.
digital transformations, right? And migrations to ERP. Like, if you just try to, pencil whip it and wing it, that is not fun. That's actually
No.
probably the least favorite things that I like doing.
Well, then it's such a mess to clean up afterwards. I would say
Exactly.
it's like you don't want that badge on your business that says AI first. You really don't, because
No.
it's a red flag
Yeah.
essentially of, oh, there's a lot that's going to happen probably that they're not aware of. Yeah.
Right. Well, and then I think understanding what is AI, right? Because there's
Yeah.
different iterations. I was just on a call and they were actually talking about agentic workflows. It's typically the other way around, yet the conversation the topic was generative AI. Well, those are two different things,
Mhm.
right? Generative AI, agentic workflows, agents are three separate things, all under the umbrella of what we say AI is. So I think also understanding, when you say you want to introduce AI, what do you mean by that? Is that
Mhm.
generative AI? Is that this like mixture between GPT, automation, introducing Zapier or some type of API integration, right? So you have some of that, like automation and AI working together. Or is this where you have something that you've coded, built, and it's off on its own without the if this then that type of approach, like an agent? That's completely different. And if you follow Glenn Hopper, someone great to follow, right? There's a lot of noise in what agents truly are, and if they're even
Uh-huh.
ready for what we're thinking they are. There's a lot of noise there. So I think being mindful of, when someone's pitching you agents, what is
What
it
are we
agent?
really talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or is this a wrapper on a GPT and all of that? So you gotta do your homework on that. The good news is you can use AI to do your homework.
I
So
know.
use
Well,
AI, use
if
generative
you don't
AI.
know, you can use the tool to help you understand what it is.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's fun because I went to a conference, a couple months ago in the summertime, and they were talking about AI in accounting and
Mhm.
all of those things, and it was breaking it down to your point here. What is AI? And then
Right.
I always call it degenerative. I'm like wrong.
Yeah, it is getting
Generative AI, all of those things that come into it, and how are you going to use each of those tools because they're not the same thing. And I think there's
right.
confusion around that because people just label everything as like AI tool. What do you
Sure.
got? And because Chat GPT was one that was well known, people just assume, oh, well, that's the standard. That's the one you use. There's
Yeah,
other great tools out
there
there
is.
that if you utilize them, you get different results.
Going back to your systems and processes, you can even assign, is that process assigned to ChatGPT? Is that process assigned to Microsoft Copilot? Is
Hmm.
that process assigned to Grok or Perplexity or Claude, right?
Yeah.
And doing your homework on, why each of those models are different. They are trained differently, and some are great for research, right? And for those that are doing dissertations, there's something for that. For those that want maybe a financial point of view that's a little bit deeper, there's LLMs for that. So,
Hmm.
and then within those LLMs, right, they
Then
make
there's
this
another layer.
complicated. No wonder no one wants to use this stuff. Then there's another layer of the model within the large language model. Is this one you don't mind that it takes a couple minutes to think through? And what I love about that, by the way, is I get to see how it thinks. Like,
Oh
this
yeah.
gentleman wants me to do. Albert wants me. I
I
love
love the
seeing
part.
how
It's
it's
like
thinking.
analyzing dot
Yeah,
dot dot, and
I
then
don't
he
know
just
what he's
goes
talking
there.
about. I'll
Yeah.
figure it out. So good.
It's so funny. No, but I think yeah, there's a lot that comes into that. And there's so much to know too, and that kind of goes back to the first question of getting into the entrepreneurial journey as
Right.
well, and understanding there's so much information out there that you can take in, and how are you going to apply that to your business today?
Yeah, and I think it's amazing. You're so helpful. You have a ton of free resources that you're like your newsletter, your post, these lives. I'm watching, I'm learning, I'm taking. So I really appreciate there's people
Yeah,
like
thank
you out
you.
there that are putting stuff out there. You're spending your time doing that, and it's so helpful. More people just need to sit down, carve out the time and listen and watch and read, because then you can go replicate. I'm a big fan of that. Is
Me
yes, you
too.
can come up with your own ideas, but there's people like you that are in there, boots on the ground. And by the way, your boots in the ground. I know you don't mess around in the trenches,
Yeah.
and it's great that we get to use this platform like LinkedIn to learn.
It is, and that's how I've learned so much too, just other thought leaders out there. Substack is really great too. People write
Yes.
phenomenal articles on there of just kind of keeping up to date, especially when it comes to the AI in the finance world, because it's ever changing and more information is coming out. It's nice to
Right.
be able to utilize technology to teach us.
I feel like the VC industry is all about the Substack. Like it's everything
Mhm.
Substack. They're all authors. Like they
They
all want to
are.
just write their stuff. But there's really some good stuff in there. There
There
really
is.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. I appreciate your time.
Yes.
What are ways that people can get in contact with you?
Sure. So, like you, I love to provide free resources out there. So, I do have my fractional CFO playbook for those that want to get updated there. It gets updated every single week, or sometimes even from all of my posts. I release something different from the CFO playbook. So, you can find that on my LinkedIn. I also have a newsletter, the AI Powered Finance Guide. So, people can subscribe there or just read along. And then I also have the podcast. We just recently branded from the Valisights podcast to the owner seat. And so you'll be seeing quite a bit of a switch on, like you do, practical examples, talking about the highlights of being an owner, whether that's in the fitness or wellness space, but also construction and manufacturing. And also hear some of the messiness, right? What I call the
Yeah.
dark side of things that people need to think about before they decide to go all in. And so check that out. Subscribe. It's on YouTube and all the major platforms that it's hosting to or distributing out to. And then LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. That's the only
Mhm.
platform I'm on. All the other stuff, although I do tend to peek at my wife when she's watching these funny videos on
Yeah.
Instagram and TikTok. But I'm like, that would totally distract me. I have a pretty big sense of humor, so I'd be all over that, just doom scrolling. LinkedIn is my platform, so you could always direct message me or click the link on my page and we can have a chat.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So thank you again for your time. This was a great conversation, and I hope everybody got a lot of good takeaways from it.
I appreciate you. Thank you for the time.
Yeah. Thanks. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you not next week, week after.